Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I am so excited to record today's event roundtable. I was telling the girls before I hit record, I chose each of them for a very specific reason. All of them are very experienced event hosts, but have different styles of events, different size of events. So I think their perspectives are going to be super interesting and really help you out if you are planning to host an event in 2026 or beyond. This discussion today is going to be really centered on how you can sell out events in 2026 and what's actually working for real event hosts. So, boots on the ground, what is actually working to sell those tickets this year. And I could not be more excited to introduce to you Dielle Charon, Taylor Smith, and Alisha Kumar. I'll read a quick intro to each of the ladies and then I'll let you guys obviously say hi and introduce yourselves. But Dielle Charon, you've heard multiple times on the podcast before, is a certified life coach and seven-figure sales expert for women of color coaches. She is the host of the For the 23% podcast and runs two well-known sales programs, Everything Sales and Money and Everything Scaling. You also will know her for her signature event, Millionaires of Color. And Taylor Smith is an international keynote speaker, strategist, and founder of the Power Table, a global women's entrepreneurship and leadership community and live conference redefining how women build visibility and wealth. Known for her relatable storytelling and bold, actionable insights, Taylor is a go-to voice for personal branding, community-driven growth, and modern leadership. I have to say, Taylor, just shouting you out, I agree, especially on the community-driven growth. Taylor is one of my favorite people to follow on Threads, so make sure you give her a follow in the show notes. And then, of course, my dear friend, Alisha Kumar. Alisha is the founder of Good Time Media, a paid ads and creative agency for CPG and direct-to-consumer brands, and also founder and host of The Founders Table, a mastermind dinner party for women founders across North America. With over 16 years in marketing and nearly a decade building communities for women entrepreneurs, Alisha believes that when women come together with intention, they create not just connection, but opportunity, growth, and lasting impact. So Taylor, Dielle, Alisha, again, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us. I'm so excited for tonight's conversation.
I want to get right in because we have so many questions I want to go over with you. And like I just said, I asked each of you on this conversation for a very specific reason. Alisha, I'm actually going to start with you because I feel like a lot of times when we talk about events and selling out events, we immediately think big conferences, scale. And what I love about what you've created with the Founders Tables is actually that it's really intentionally curated, intimate rooms. And so I would kind of love to hear for you, what are the nuances that you have seen in selling this type of event compared to those larger events? Because you do also have quite a bit of experience selling those larger, 100, 200, 300-person events.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things that came to mind when it came to starting the founders table was making sure that I knew every single person in the room. I've been to so many large events where I haven't spoken to the host, yet they're the reason why I ended up coming there. I haven't met anybody else besides the person that I went with. People get clicky, totally fine. I get it. And I'm super introverted. And so it takes me a minute to warm up to rooms. And the concept behind the founders table, only having 20 women in the room, is not that you only meet every single person there, but you also get intentional feedback. And that feedback is not only from myself, but your peers. And it really creates this deep community as opposed to wide. And they end up becoming referral partners because you remember every single person in the room. And it was important to me to greet every single person that came into that room by their name and also know their business. And it's always so funny to see their faces when I do recognize them because they're like, oh, this hasn't ever happened. An event host has never greeted us at the door and knew us by name. So it's really special in creating that connection there with our attendees. And it always just came down to more intention and going in deeper with everyone.
That level of personalization that you talk about that attendees actually get to experience when they walk in the room and attend one of your dinners, do you feel that translates directly into the way that you sell these events as well? Are you doing personal outreach, personal invites? Does it look different than how you would sell a larger event?
Yeah, for sure. I am in those DMs because these are women that I have connected with online. And regardless of whether they're here in Seattle or out in Austin where I hadn't been before. And it creates that personalization that I don't think a lot of people are doing. So it almost gives us a leg up in not only having them to come to one event, but also come to numerous others and shout us out from every single corner of the internet or in person to everybody else. And so it just creates this ripple effect as well. Because if I get a really great experience, regardless of whether it's an event or a hotel or a restaurant, I'm telling my friends about it. And so it creates a ongoing almost train of people just being like, "Hey, I'm going to this really cool thing," or "I have been to this cool thing. I'm bringing you along with me because this is something you have to experience."
I definitely want to circle back to that point of repeat attendance and returning attendees. I think that's a really key part of like being able to host sold out events year after year after year, which each of you have done so well. Taylor, I'm going to jump over to you real quick. You're kind of like what I consider like the in between of a really small, intimate dinner party, like what Alisha just described, and a huge conference. You have a really great size conference. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's usually between 100 to 200 people. So definitely a big room, but not so big that it would be impossible for you to like have a quick interaction with every guest. So I'm curious for you, what are you seeing as the nuances of selling an event of your size and also I would say of your price point because you also are kind of that mid-range price point, I would say like under 1,000 but definitely over just, the low hundreds.
I think that the sweet spot for, like, both size and price is, like, finding the gap that fits, and it's kind of like I was just telling somebody actually yesterday, like, why is it that I can't find the right dress in that, like, $300 to $500 price point? Why is it, like, all of the clothes are really terrible below that, and there's no good clothes in this range? And I brought that up just to share that's kind of what events are like in a sense right now is you have these very, very high ticket, you're spending $3,000 to $5,000 on the investment, or you have this $100 to $200 ticket where, the room might tell you they're going to be 150, 200 people there. And in reality, there's 35 and there's not a lot of tangibles for you. And so for me, I was creating an event that structurally addressed a gap where women wanted to walk away with a lot of connections and a lot of ideas and a lot of resources but also met the price point and the total like advertising and marketing budget that I knew the woman who was in that early multiple six figures would probably spend per event. Because you've got to know, like, conferences are part of someone's marketing budget, right? And there's only so much they're going to assign to that bucket in their finances for the year. And so you can't price your event at a price where that's their whole budget for the entire year. You've really got to think strategically, not just about what you think the value of your event is, but where it falls in their overall choices for what am I investing in this year. People who sell services or coaching, I think that often isn't something that they consider. But with conferences that are date specific, what I've noticed for people in this space is they're actually thinking through, what are my plans 6 months from now, 12 months from now, budgeting, taking time off, coordinating travel plans with their family. And so really thinking strategically about how your attendee is making that decision and making sure you're addressing a gap and because you're addressing that gap, you now stand out in the events landscape because you're offering something that they can't get anywhere else. And that's kind of the sweet spot that we've ended up with the Power Table is we have a proven track record of, we track data. So we know exactly how much money our average attendee makes off the room. We know exactly how many referrals they get. We know exactly how many speaking and podcast invites that they get. And we check off all the boxes that they're looking for.
I want to definitely return to that point too, Taylor, especially that data point you just mentioned, because that was something I immediately noticed about your website when I went to the event landing page. I love how you really brought an outcomes based marketing. I've seen very few events do that where it's not just like, here's who you're going to meet in the room or why you should attend or what you'll learn, but really like after you leave the room, here's what's going to happen in your business. And exactly like the things that you just mentioned, like the collaboration opportunities, the amount of sales that the average attendee earns. I thought that was so interesting. So we'll definitely dig into that later in this conversation. Thank you for those insights. Dielle, you're kind of at the higher range of the investment for this particular group. In the larger grand scheme of things, when we zoom out, Millionaires of Color is not necessarily even like a super high ticket event. I think your event cost or event ticket rather is about $1,500 for an attendee. But in the, in the scope of this conversation, that's kind of, the higher range that I wanted to chat with you about. Like, what do you see sells well in that kind of ticket range? And then also, something I find really interesting about the nuance of your event is, in the past at least, like, I know it recently was rebranded to Millionaires of Color, but in the past when it was Emancipation Experience, from my understanding, it used to be like a client only event, or it was like majority, like 95% plus existing clients who had the opportunity to actually even purchase a ticket to be in the room. What was the decision behind that?
Such great questions. So our price point was mainly, and I'm sure we'll talk about this, just budget. And so for me, and I no shade to anybody else that does events or has events, but I really wanted to make sure, and like the filter that I used was, I don't want this to be something that somebody could get at their living room, right? Or somebody could get at their local Hilton. And so I really wanted to have an experience that was unique where they got into the space and they were like, oh, I'm in a new environment. I'm going to be a new energy. I'm going to have a new experience. And so, unfortunately, especially with events, that comes at a cost. And so, we're very budget conscious. And so, that's a main reason why we have our budget the way that it is. It also increases our show up rate. I think it's one of the most frustrating experiences as an event host. You put all this time, people get maybe quote unquote cheaper or lower ticket price, and then they don't come because they're just like, yeah, that's not worth it anymore. I have this thing pulling at me, I have that thing pulling at me. And so it increases our show up rate. There was one year where we had a $500 ticket and we had about a 20% like not show up rate. And I was like, oh, I did not like the empty chairs. I did not like that people had other priorities that weren't worth that investment. And so we went back up, we bumped it up this year to really have that show up rate increase. And so that's kind of like the pricing mechanics behind it. I would also say how I structure the event in one of my other event filters, and I have a lot of event filters to help me make decisions because you could do so many different things in events. But another event filter I have is, how can I help somebody have a 12-month transformation in 2 days? And so what I love about events is it's condensed. They left their home environment and you are in control of their schedule for 2 days, 3 days, however long you have them. That is so powerful to me. And I don't take that for granted as an event host. And so I said, what things can I have? Not necessarily pack the calendar or pack the day, but what experiences can I have where they can have a 12-month transformation in 2 days? They don't have their kids. They don't have to be on Zoom. They don't have to toggle between different things. I have their full undivided attention for this time. And so we plan out the schedule in a way that has built-in ROI. One of the things that we do is something called get it done sessions, where they're not just being taught at, with a PowerPoint. We actually don't allow PowerPoints in our breakout rooms. Whereas all workshop style, the facilitator is coming around and looking over laptops and looking over notebooks and helping people actually have an asset after that breakout room. So being very intentional with the calendar, I also think can help justify the price as well.
I love that. And I feel like the variety of sessions has been something that, having attended your event before, I really enjoyed. Like, one of my favorite breakouts was when you had grouped us by Roundtable. I think we did two different ones. One was like when you broke us out by niche or industry. And it was really just like fun to be able to have those like very curated conversations. Like, you had done the research ahead of time, because I remember flipping the back of my name badge and like had a number assigned, like pre-assigned. So you had clearly thought about who was coming and who was going to be in the room. So I love that. I would love next to jump into promotion and, again, what's really working in 2026 to sell out events. So for each of you, I'm curious, which marketing channel is actually selling you the most tickets right now? And I'm sure there's channels I'm not even thinking of, but what came to mind when I was, ruminating on this question was like, is it organic word of mouth? Are you employing an actual affiliate strategy? Are you using ads? Is it primarily organic social? Is it email? Is it SEO traffic? Is it your speakers or even you speaking on other stages? Those were just some of the channels that came to mind. But like, if you had to pick your number one to double down on, because that is selling the majority of your tickets, what would it be for each of you?
I would say for me, it's definitely Instagram because you do have that. You could do a carousel, you can have videos. Video marketing for your event is huge, huge, huge. And so, anytime where someone can see clips, testimonials, they want to know what the space looks like. A lot of things, a lot of people say about my event is like, oh, it's so well decorated, it's so beautiful. Like, that's something that people really say about mine. And that's definitely separates us from other events as well. So, I'd say Instagram. And then the second one is act to the complete opposite is email marketing. And for email, our strategy is to share as many logistics as possible. Something that I say when selling an event is people are leaving their own environment to go to something foreign. They've maybe never been to the state that you're hosting in. You're a stranger on the internet that they're following. They don't know the people, to a lot of the points that were already discussed here. And so I have found the more I can calm their anxiety, being like, we have a schedule, there's food on site, here are all the details, here's a sample of what your day could look like. We have a discount, a hotel discount. We could just like calm those fears. Those really help with ticket sales. And then I would say the next thing is stories. I share a lot of event stories on how I was a side hustler making $2,500 a month as a social worker. And I did crazy things to attend events. I took red eye flights and then brushed my teeth in the office bathroom to go and then started work Monday morning with no sleep just to attend events. And like, I understand the sacrifice of going to an event and making an event. And I understand what that can mean for you too. Just showing those stories and also sharing testimonials too are powerful.
Okay, I want to jump in real quick on the email logistics part. I really just want to highlight for our listeners that a lot of people save logistics for post purchase. Like when someone's bought, they're like, here's what to expect. And I saw Taylor, you nodding your head too. So if you have a thought to add, please jump in. But I feel like what you just said, DL, is actually really important, like using logistics as a front end marketing tactic. Taylor, did you have a thought?
I just wanted to second everything DL said, especially for the people who are more introverted, right? They see the value in it and it just feels physically and energetically a challenge to get there. So one of the things that we did this year that people loved was we made a lookbook. So I basically was like, what if we made like a Delia's catalog of our event? And it was useful to both our current attendees and our prospective attendees. So it wasn't like, yeah, meet in this room at 3:45, but it was rather like, here's the agenda for the day. Here's what to wear. Here's the information about the resort. Here's what people do before and after. We included like FAQs, like, should you bring printed business cards? We actually recommend that you do Blink or a digital card. So we tried to basically like almost like a mini sales catalog, but it was really more of like, we want you to have the most certainty in your choice possible. And we want you to be discerning in your choice to invest in the event. So we're giving you all the information that you need.
I love that. Great piece of advice there. Is there a particular marketing channel that's working really well for you right now to sell out tickets?
I would say in the beginning, like year 1 and 2 of the event, we relied really, really heavily on those Instagram reels, like visual content. Instagram was our number one sales platform. And I think that's really important to start with is like, if your event is newer, that probably is where you're going to make the most of your sales right now. But now, headed into year 3 of our conference, almost all of our sales are actually driven by our community, which is such a cool place to be in. The word of mouth, the referrals, we have an affiliate program. We work really hard to build in our community members so many opportunities to help them like hype up the event. So we have a program called Experience Week, where we have like a live virtual mini summit in a sense, where every day for an hour a day at lunch, we have some different virtual event related to the conference, like a mini speaker panel and a first timers call where they can get to talk to alumni. And so we spotlight as many of our past attendees who are coming back as possible. And in turn, that generates so many ticket sales for us.
Brilliant. Alisha, what about you? What is your primary promotion strategy that's working best to sell tickets for Founders Table right now?
Similar to DL, it's Instagram and also our email list. We share logistics beforehand. I know something that I love to do along with my friends is look at the menu before I go to any restaurant. And so we share things like that to be like, oh, what are you going to be getting? And really put them in the experience before the experience even starts or before they even get their ticket. And also any type of questions that they might have in regards to what are you going to be masterminding? What part of your business are you going to focus on? Along with what are we hearing in other rooms? Not necessarily who is saying it, but here is what the conversations at the founders table looks like. It's not necessarily what do I post on Instagram? How do I grow an email list? It's, hey, I have an exit plan, or I just sold one of my businesses for 2 mil. Here's what I'm going into next. So the conversations are really different. And we want to make sure that we specify that beforehand and before they get into the room so they can come prepared. Because the last thing I want anybody to do is come to the founders table, try and figure out what they even want to mastermind and either feel intimidated or not prepared, because I want everybody to make the most of their room. So I love that Dielle does that as well, along with Taylor, is, hey, here's what you're going to expect at this event, and here's why you want to be here, or maybe it's not a right fit for you, and really honing in on that. And then on the flip side, for sponsors,
to hear the rest of this episode and unlock weekly subscriber-only content and community access, join us as a premium subscriber at cubicletoceo.co/podcast. The link is below in our show notes.